Finance Committee. I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call. Dan?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Greg?
Aye.
Victoria?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Angelina?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Okay. Evan, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Just wait for William to share that and we'll go from there. Okay, ready, Will?
Yep.
All right, so before I begin, I just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank the Select Board, School Committee, Finance Committee, all of our department heads for working very diligently on this. And especially thanks to Mary Loria, our Finance Director, Jay Cummings, our Superintendent, Anita Patel, the Director of Finance, William Blake, the Assistant Town Administrator, Cindy Ide, the Executive Assistant, and Amber Diffenderfer, Assistant to the Select Board, Affordable Housing Trust, and Finance.
She has the longest title, huh?
She was trying to get me to add to it today. I don't have enough on the line. This slide is more for when we post the PowerPoint, but this gives a link directly to our budget book and the Financial Transparency Center where all of this is available on the website. So our top three budgetary priorities this year are to maintain the override capacity. That's something we've talked about since I started almost exactly 2 years ago. Our second thing is to continue to fund the Grafton Public Schools competitively. We believe that they create a great product and are good partners, and we want to maintain that relationship. We also are nearing the end of our goal of reaching 25 officers. At the end of this upcoming fiscal year, we'll be at 24. So we are getting to where we stated we would. Just brief demographics. I cut out about 6 slides of demographics that I had last year. You all know where you live, and I don't think we need to go through that. Grafton does have a higher median income than at least 31% of the state. The average single-family house here is valued at about $448,000 as opposed to the state's $525,000, and the average tax bill is $7,980. Massachusetts average is $6,724. The two numbers on here with asterisks are ones that have not been updated by the state since the last budget presentation. So likely both of those have gone up. So overview, and this slide is largely unchanged. So we have our updated 2021 for refinancing. That was the last time we had a bond ratings call, and we were rated AA stable. Much of what we do in the budgeting process seeks to protect that bond rating. Our OPEB report is also unchanged. We will be putting some additional funds in there this year, but our liability remains at $83.4 million, and we currently have $313,000, which is 0.2%. So making some great progress there. Stabilization, our municipal stabilization, is $4,284, which has crept up in the last couple of years, and we continue to try to put money away into there. And we closed this year at 1.7 million free cash, which is puts our financial reserves at about 5.7% of the operating budget, which is within our financial stabilization policies. This is just a slide that I think last year people were really interested in. This shows our new growth values. So we had $52 million of new growth value, new value. And as you can see, the majority of that is residential and personal property, which is what we'd expect. That we're at about a 90-10 split with residential. Okay, so on to the numbers. So our tax levy this year is $48,473,000. Our 2.5% increase puts us at adds about 1.2 million. We pegged new growth at 700,000, and that will leave an excess levy capacity of $351,264, which is lower than we hope expect to be, and hope to be able to get that number to come up in the next month or so. As we work
Can I
towards
interrupt
it.
for
Sure.
a second? So
Absolutely.
at the 351, and if you're able to get that up, what's the projection? Because we wanted the override to last, what, 4 or 5 fiscal years?
Right.
What does this do to that?
So this would downgrade where we were hoping to be. We'd still be at the 5-year. I don't have any thoughts that we would come up short on that. We're really hoping to be 7, 8, 10 years. And so there's some reasons though I think why we're accelerated past that a little bit, and this is an overshoot of where we wanted to be this fiscal year. And so we'll talk about that a little bit as we go, but we'll also talk about some of the strategies we're looking at to get that number to come up.
Thank you, Evan.
And then just one last thing before I move from that slide. The other thing to keep in mind is we've pegged our revenues very, very conservatively because we don't have all of those numbers yet. And that's how I like to budget, and Mary likes to budget. We like to, you know, if the state is consistently moving the unrestricted aid at 2%, and we might get 3.5%, great. We'll take that 1.5% and let it hit our capacity and build that up rather than bank on it now and not get it.
And hopefully the state will come through in Chapter 70 like they did last year.
Exactly. And if that happens, then
You're golden.
we're in great shape.
Yep.
Exactly.
I like the conservative. It's always better to be conservative.
Yeah.
Come back and give us good news instead of say, oh, by the way, I
Exactly.
missed the estimate.
Exactly. It's nowhere to go but up.
Yep.
So this gives you your override capacity or levy capacity, and one thing I want to point out is I've stopped doing the 2 sets of numbers. So there was levy capacity and then there was override capacity. We've stopped doing the override capacity because, quite frankly, it's a fictitious number to a certain degree because it's all the same pot. It's all levy capacity. So did I spend override money or growth money? It's all kind of the same thing. So we're going to start changing that narrative just to levy capacity. Levy capacity is where we need to focus. And you can see over the fiscal years that levy capacity dropping fairly steadily. And the idea is to obviously prolong that number as long as possible. Next slide, Will. So this is our new growth going back to 2015. You can see that from fiscal 20 through 23, we've been well north of 800,000, which is, I think, where we probably will be again for new growth. We are pegging it at 700,000 currently because we're a little bit cautious given interest rates and everything that's going on in the housing market. We also had a couple of large developments that are hitting a little bit of a pause right now, and we're not sure that they're going to create enough development in the coming year to be counted into our projection. So we're being a little cautious there as well. I'd rather come up. Yeah.
Question on slide 8, you show FY23 new growth is 700,000. Was that an estimate?
That's what we budgeted. Yes.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So that's the budgeted.
Yes. Let
Okay.
me clarify that. So these numbers on the slide that I'm showing now, well, or was showing now, the charty one. Those are the actuals.
Okay.
So we might have, like last year, we counted on 700,000, but we actually had 881.
Okay.
I wish I could get my new growth number to be down to $258 and know exactly what I was going to hit. That would be fantastic. But yes, that's the reason. But you can see that, Grafton's got some pretty healthy growth going on. Next one. So I also did this a little different than last year. I've broken down the revenue by category so that you get a little bit more of the detail of what we're doing. And so I've broken all the tax that we have with the exception of motor vehicle excise, which is its own category. And you can see what we're projecting here. So the total income from taxes should be right around $70,238,665. You can see that we've got negative numbers on our allowance abatement exemptions. That's what we plan for people that come in for exemptions. And then the charter school reimbursement at negative 140,000. So that's what we intend to see go out that way. Chapter 70 we have at 12,660. We anticipate that it's going to be higher than that.
Is this the fiscal 23 number?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so you level funded it for your budget, okay.
Yep, yep. That actually carries 2% in it.
Oh, that carries 2%,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So again, we build in what we forecast will be the floor, right? They're not going to come back at less than 2%. It's not going to happen, and it gets us a little bit closer to where we think we're going to end up.
Okay.
What's chapter 73? The one
Chapter
above
70 is
73. Line above school aid. The loss of
that's
taxes.
elderly exemptions,
So that's money that we get from the state to cover that?
right?
Okay.
Correct. Right. Just making sure. The way Mark looked at Greg, I got nervous for a second. Then I didn't know.
I was it seemed like loss of taxes and it's positive, so that was
Yep.
okay.
All right, and then the next page, and we don't have to go into the minutia, but I thought this would be handy for the finance committee to see.
Oh, I like this one.
This is all our other revenues by category. One thing that I want to point out that is particularly frustrating to me is the total cannabis excise. So for those of you that don't know, the legislature passed a bill that basically got rid of all of the host community money. Right now, it's in front of the Cannabis Control Commission to determine whether or not that will be retroactive or only for agreements that are being renewed going forward.
They better do it only for renewed agreements. They
I-
can't take away what's
I-
everybody's counted on.
I agree. I agree. I sent a strongly worded letter to the CCC to that effect as well.
Where do you count the 3% tax though that you get on it?
That's where that's that cannabis excise.
You're only expecting $12,000?
Yes.
Sales are that bad?
Yes.
We only got one place that's open.
I was gonna say, yeah, only one open
Yes.
so far. So.
Yeah, and we believe the second one will be open within the next 30 days.
The one on,
By Pecorino, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Hayes. It's not Hayes anymore. Trying a blank on Colonel Booth's facility. I thought okay,
No.
we don't have to get into it. I think it changed its name again. But at any rate, we got bitten pretty hard in this last fiscal year by cannabis revenue, which we were not paid. And so we're working through that. But that was about $120,000 of revenue that we
I remember you
counted on.
counted that last year, yeah.
And that was the minimum per the host agreement. But as soon as that went through the legislature, and I've talked to town administrators around the state, and they were dealing with the same thing. As soon as that bill passed the legislature, the cannabis industry stopped paying, with the hope that the bill will be retroactive and they won't owe any of that money.
So there is a chance,
Mm-hmm.
once they make their ruling, that you get a check. There's a chance.
There's a chance.
Not a very good chance.
No.
Okay.
Not enough of one for me to count on in any kind of budget cycle. So we have decided not to count factor in the excise from the new facility that's going to open. It was supposed to open in the fall. Now it's opening in the spring. I'm not going to hang my hat on anybody else's business and know what they're going to do. So I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than have to do what we did this year, which is find $120,000 in revenue. Any other questions on anything you see?
On investment income,
Mm-hmm.
is the treasurer seeing higher interest rates?
Yes, not in any real appreciable way that I think is going to,
Change that number?
not really.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let me just clarify one other thing on that slide. You're not seeing the fiscal 23 numbers. If you recall, we did the conversion from Vadar, and that's made some of our numbers not match up. And so rather than give you data that was a little bit wonky, we will come back and make a second pass at this that will show you exactly what it was year over year. Computer died. Okay.
You have a printout right next to you.
I do. I can also look at this. Thank you, though. I don't want to look at my notes. Okay, so for this budget proposal, our total revenue looks to be $75,072,000, and our total expenses $74,717,000. Yeah, that's gonna be problematic. Good call, Colleen. Should grab my glasses. Okay. On to the operating budget. I broke this down by the largest categories, and obviously you all can go into ClearGov as soon as I push save. I know some of you have already tried to do it. And you got to just chill out. We'll get there. So as soon
This is how we voted it. This is the way we voted it last year, right?
with fiscal 23, yeah, yep, and then fiscal 24 against it. So as soon as I hit save the original revision, then FinCom can go in and break all these down line by line. So you'll see that general government shows an increase of 6.4%. Keep in mind that is where we house health insurance and some of our other lines, which are pretty much factors that are hard for us to control. We are currently working with our employee committee to move from our current vendor over into what's called the Strategic Health Group, which is it's a collaborative. And we believe if we do that, that's going to net some significant benefits for Grafton. But they won't show up on this page, and I'll tell you why. So right now, Grafton is looking at an 8% increase over what we had last year. If we can get into this health group, we will look at maybe a 2% increase, which is fantastic. However, also built into what we currently pay is we shoulder a significant burden with our HRAs. So what I mean by that is if you are a single person and your deductible's $1,000, your deductible's $1,000, but the plan actually has a deductible of $4,000. The town of Grafton pays the difference. We're on the hook for $3,000. That's not new. That's something that was already in place. What we're trying to do with this switch is, even though we might get a better rate and say a 2% increase, if we can get rid of those HRAs and get a lower deductible plan, that will pay dividends later on. Because what we're seeing in Grafton is a very high loss ratio, and so that's where we're getting hit. So our loss ratio this time last year was 107%, which makes us very unattractive to any vendors, right? So I think we've got some really good prospects that are going to help stabilize our insurance position. I just don't think you're going to see it there. Public safety shows just over $500,000 increase. That's about $100,000 in the fire department and $400,000 in the police department. It's a somewhat artificial change because a lot of these changes we did last year, and we funded for half a year, and so this is kind of the proverbial chickens coming home to roost.
Collective bargaining wise,
Right. So
where are you with all of that?
we've settled that
How many
contract. 3 years.
Perfect.
But we were 1 year behind.
Oh, so you got two, so
2 years.
24 and 25?
Exactly.
Okay.
But that's the other thing you're seeing here is the impact of the
Retroactive?
collective bargaining that in the previous budget was pushed into a line called salary reserve and some other areas that we anticipated that we would need this money. But it's now showing up in this line.
And this adds one new position?
This will get us up to 24 officers.
Okay.
Yep. So we're one off from our goal.
Okay.
The schools came in at 43,427, and we continue to work with the schools on that number.
Is that the projection that you had last year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's the number that we showed in our projection. And we've been working very closely with Jay and Anita on all of that. And we're, I think, continuing our great relationship between the towns and the schools. So that's very helpful. I can't stress enough how good that is to work with them. Blackstone Valley, we don't have that number. We probably won't get that number, I believe, until March. That's generally when we see that. So we added $200,000 to it.
Do they share with you, because I know my tech school gives me the population in October,
Yes.
and it gives me a handle on where I am.
Yes, I believe our forecast is 8 additional kids.
Wow.
Which is why
We think 200,000 is enough?
Yeah, yes, Mark.
Okay.
I'm under enough stress right now.
Okay, I don't mean to add to your
Oh.
stress, I apologize.
So that's what we're looking at there. Public Works, they really level funded everything but salaries and they're doing a great job. Public Works. Health and Human Services, you actually see a decrease. So we've been working with the Worcester Health Alliance, and our current fiscal projection is down from last year. They had a surplus, and the towns got together and said we'd like to push that against our assessment, so that lowered that bill.
Can I go back to public safety? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
Regional dispatch, where are you guys with that?
Another great topic, Mark. Thanks.
Do you want me to leave? Do you want me to leave the room?
On
or-
Tuesday.
So on the 24th, we have a public outreach meeting.
Okay.
So we are continuing.
Does this budget count on it or doesn't?
It does not.
Okay.
Nope, not factored in at all. We are continuing to move forward. We have the option to sign an IMA, intermunicipal agreement, with Hopkinton, South Borough, and Westboro. I have a meeting tomorrow with those towns, the town managers. And I think that once we get through the meeting on the 24th, barring anything unforeseen, the board does seem positive. I think we'll continue to head in that direction.
If you do that for fiscal 24, will you see you'll see a savings in your public safety budget or no?
I can't imagine a scenario where fiscal 24 is when it takes effect.
Okay.
Honestly, because we have a facility that we went and toured. It's a complete renovation. You've got to wait for the state to release the money. It won't
All
affect.
right, so this budget is pretty solid for what you need.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't foresee that changing in here.
I apologize I should have asked that earlier.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's not like I was in the middle of something else. Okay. Where were we? Culture and recreation. So that's a 1.94. That's another department that set of departments that continue to level fund besides salaries.
So the library's not looking for more people?
They did not put in for more people.
Really?
Yep.
Put a little asterisk there. I'm sorry. I know. I don't want to jinx it.
I did get an email that talks about some changes to what was submitted, but I have not acted upon any of that yet. So
Okay.
we'll
There's
continue,
a potential.
we'll continue to
Okay,
discuss.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
You want me to stop asking questions?
I don't
'Cause
know, Mark.
will.
You're killing me. If I go down, I want you to put on my tombstone, pushed over the edge by Mark Haddad. And then interfund transfer, that 50,000. That's just our OPEB move that we're trying to put an amount in.
4.37% is not a bad growth.
There you go.
You could go to Groton's public meeting.
I'm
public
really
hearing.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already did mine last week, so
I
it's
should've-
too late.
I should have got ahead of that. If I knew this is how it was going to go, I'd have been there. Okay. Anyways, so changes to expenses. So our contribution to retirement increased by 9.93%, which is $256,000. Part of that is driven by our growth in the police department, but honestly, that was almost the identical number to last year. And so we just continue to see that in the Worcester retirement system. We're north of 8% consistently.
You'll see probably a little bit of a bump. It usually takes 2 years
Right.
for them to catch up.
Yep.
So you might see a bigger bump next year in
Yeah.
that number.
Yeah. We have level funded our town insurance costs. We don't anticipate any increase in that. We're currently carrying 5% health insurance increase at $272,000. Again, hopefully it's lower than that, but I would gladly trade the HRAs for a savings on that particular line. Blackstone Valley Tech, that $200,000 is a placeholder. We have a 2% cost of living adjustment across the board, with the exception of GMEA, which has not ratified their contract yet.
You have money set aside for that?
I do.
Okay.
And you'll see in the line item detail that we've increased energy lines pretty much throughout the budget, wherever they are, by anywhere between 15 and 30%, depending on what their heating source is and what they're using for energy currently. So changes to expenses continued. Under the select board, we added a line. So we have the Follett well, and every year that costs $10,000 in monitoring fees. We weren't capturing that anywhere. We restored the assistant town administrator position. I thought we were gonna get clapping or something.
Oh.
No? Oh, yeah, thank you. There you go. There you go. Okay. Human resources, we added a benefits coordinator to handle town and school issues. That position resides wholly in the municipal budget in this fiscal year. Information technology, we actually reduced that line by 8.67%. So we have a successful contract right now for service, and we've hit a quasi plateau of equipment now that we've caught up to our security problems and some of our stability issues that we were having. You'll also see that the town clerk requested a salary adjustment.
Didn't we just change that salary last year?
I believe it was 2 years ago. It was before my.
So that was supposed to bring her in line with, so we didn't?
Oh, we did. It was a pretty big one.
Yeah, so why are we even considering that?
So I'm going to tell you what my philosophy on this is she's an elected official, and so what I had told her was that she could make her request, come to the finance committee, we would discuss it with the finance committee, and then we would make a decision based on that. And that's not a pass the buck thing.
Sounds like it to me.
No, honestly,
What's she looking for?
she would be at 77, and she's looking to go to 92.
Wow.
Based on what?
So she has data that she believes supports that. So we will have time to discuss that further. Conservation Commission, I eliminated the field inspector position. We've had that going on our third fiscal year, and can't get anyone to fill that position. So we're going to change our approach on that and look for a different solution. Obviously, we talked about police department. The fire department has an increase of, like I said, roughly $90,000, just shy of 100. Most of that is vehicle and equipment maintenance, which I think, given my understanding of the situation, is necessary. This is ladder testing and hose testing and things that we really should be doing that we historically haven't been doing on a consistent basis. The schools, as always, I'll leave that for the superintendent to give you the detail there. In our engineering department, we have increased that line due to MS4 permitting.
I'm sorry, I was just reading something. Didn't the inspector of buildings ask for a plan review last year and we took it out?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm gonna
Are you
get
trying again this year?
trying again this year. Did I skip that part?
You did.
Yeah.
That's why I,
It's not
Nice.
like
This is a high level, just overview. We get into the details on Saturday.
well, I apologize for that accident. I won't do that again. No, so I have a retirement in that department coming up over this fiscal year. And part of the conversation is our retiring staff to do some part-time hours and onboard a new person. So we will discuss that in further detail. I know the finance committee's conversation around it last year. I have talked to the department head about that being the likely scenario again this year, but I did say that I would enter it here to have a discussion with all of you.
Okay.
And I just to be clear, that's kind of my MO for all of this stuff, right? Some things I will shut down if I'm vehemently opposed to it, but if I think it warrants discussion, I'll put it in there, we'll discuss it.
Makes sense.
And we'll come to a reasonable solution.
I'm sure we will.
Health and Human Services, obviously, I just talked about that. We had a decrease in that line. So we continue to really aggressively chase grants. I don't have the fiscal year number for last year. Due to some turnover, I'm a little behind on that sheet. But we're well north of $800,000 again.
Awesome.
So we're doing well. I also want to point out some earmarks that we were able to work with our local legislators on. So we got a $50,000 earmark to do accessible customer service window at the assessor's office. We got $25,000 unrestricted for public safety, $100,000 unrestricted for economic development, and $150,000 for fire radios. And we're also expecting our fleet changeover to happen here in April, so we'll go from driving Ford Explorers to hybrids. So we should see.
Those are the ones that you had in the budget last year that you finally
Still-
get. It's that long to get them, huh? Wow.
I wanted to do 2 more this year to turn a couple other vehicles over, but you can't even order the 23s, so it's
Crazy.
just not worth it.
With those unrestricted grants, is that up to like the department head to decide how to spend that, or is
No,
that
it's up to me.
okay?
The department heads, are you crazy? No. most of them we've already honestly earmarked before we even get them. So that's us working with the local legislators and saying, hey, it would be great if you could get us $50,000 to do an ADA accessible service window. So that's pretty much what that's earmarked for. Public safety, because of the words public safety, almost always it's just here's some money and use it however you want. And I don't have anything earmarked to there. The same thing with economic development. That was kind of a last minute ARPA project through the state, where Dave Meridian called me and said, if I can get you $100,000 in economic development money to bring back to Grafton, can we do something worthwhile with that? And I said,
Of course.
of course. And the $150,000 for fire radio. So even though we're going to regional dispatch and we would be able to get new radios, if that process takes 2 years,
You still need to
we're
replace
still
what
in
you
real
have.
bad shape for the fire department. They're on a their repeater is a portable radio connected to the tower. It's really not good. So we're working on that actively. But we have to do that regardless before we get down to the regional dispatch. Okay, on to some variables to consider in this budget. One, it's only January. We've got a lot of change that's going to come in the coming months. Health insurance is worst case. It's likely that our new growth is going to be higher than we anticipate in this budget. Chapter 70 increase is a major driver that we haven't really factored yet because we've only put the kind of floor increase in there. GMEA isn't finished with their contract ratification. The Blackstone Valley number is a placeholder. And last year we increased bag fees, which nobody likes. I'm recommending that we do that every 2 years because if we're going to try to keep pace with those bag fees offsetting half the cost of trash, you're going to very quickly outpace that. So we need to just continually have that conversation. Otherwise, that impacts your levy capacity.
That was the start of this fiscal year, right?
Yes. Okay. On to capital. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay. So our total capital plan this year seeks to spend $1,760,200. This gives you a breakdown of where that money goes. Again, you can go to ClearGov and hover over all this. You can also click the links and go to each project page, which will take you to more information on each item. Excuse me. We are looking to spend out of capital stabilization $1,496,200. Out of free cash, $204,000, and other, which is the sewer enterprise fund, $60,000. You can see the total as it breaks down, yeah, we'll just go to the next page.
Do you know what the balance on current capital stabilization is?
Yep. So I honestly don't because
Okay.
this just died on me, and I don't know why it did that. I can tell you that, and I will email this out right after, unless Mary has it online. But we're really close on capital stabilization. We're within $8,000 of what's in that fund.
Well, the whole intent of that is
Right.
to use it and,
Yep.
and not use free cash, and I'm
Correct.
glad to see you only using 200 in free
Right,
cash.
and
That's
so
awesome.
we're well within our free cash. We have 1.7 million, and we can spend a third of that without impacting our
Credit.
Yep. Sorry.
It's all right.
Without impacting our bond rating, and so we're well within that. We're gonna keep using capital stabilization over free cash because free cash will let us move stuff into move money into stabilization as well as into OPEB and other places we need it to go. Okay, on to the capital improvement plan itself. So this is a breakdown, and I'd like to just run through it quickly with you folks. The first item on the list is the Hennessy Culvert and Bridge. So this is at 46 Adams Road. If you're familiar, there was a milk barn there, the milking parlor portion of the barn. We demolished that and created a nice parking area. And then we got a pretty heavy storm, and the culvert that gets you from the parking area into the conservation area washed away. That culvert was an old farm culvert, and due to it being in a federal floodway, we are not able to just stick that back into the ground. So this $150,000 is much higher than we would like to be spending. But this is a 15-foot span aluminum bridge with an open bottom. So it meets all of the conservation requirements. It also is slightly higher by about $20,000 to get a load rating that will allow us to drive a forest fire vehicle or ambulance over it. Because in my personal opinion, once you've spent 130, you might as well spend 150 and be able to actually drive over the thing with a vehicle should somebody get hurt or we have a fire back there and we need to have access. Replace the fire inspection vehicle. So I believe the plan, and I'm sure the chief will go into this a little bit further, is to trickle down his current vehicle to the fire inspector, and then he would replace his vehicle with a pickup truck, a crew cab pickup truck of some kind. That seems to be what he's aiming for. The next three items are all lease payments from previously purchased fire trucks. Highway Department.
One of them's renovations.
Sorry, Station 2 renovations, $100,000 is the second half of the renovations that we started last fiscal year. So we estimated that to be roughly $200,000 and broke it apart into two different fiscal years. Down to the next items for highway. So there is a deck over trailer, a material roller, and a mini excavator. So those are all kind of go together. And that is so that we can do more of our own interior work for sidewalks, as well as drainage and anything else you want to use a mini excavator for. We are also replacing truck 34. That's an F450 dump truck with plow.
That's a normal maintenance
Yeah,
replacement.
just
Yep.
part of the normal capital plan.
Yep.
And again, when you look at the capital plan, if you click on any of these, it gives you mileage, pictures, all kinds of stuff. If you're interested in that cat excavator, you can go look at the brochure. It's all in there. Actually, I will commend Highway. They do an excellent job with their capital items, and they put a lot of detail and information in there, which is cool. Cemetery is replacing a mower. That's a normal replacement for us. Police, this is new, and depending on where we end up, I may shift this into operational. So this is a taser lease program.
It's 5-year lease, if I understand it
Correct.
correctly. Great idea.
Yep. Thanks. I didn't think of it, but
No,
no. Chief Crapo brought this to my attention, and it just makes sense with the technology changes and the cost of tasers and all the things that go along with those.
one of the things that might be coming down the pike too, because the same lease program allows you to get the cameras
Yes.
as well. Are you guys looking at that at all?
We have those separately. We got a grant for that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So they are not online yet, but probably I think that by the end of February they're online.
Oh, okay.
So we did that. We impact bargained it, the whole thing.
Nice.
Yep.
Glad to have that. Refresh my memory. We have cruises in the operating budget, not the capital budget, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a quick question about the taser replacement program?
Sure.
The $25,000 public safety grant you were talking about earlier that you don't have a plan for, could that?
It could. I just want to specify. I don't have a plan for it. I don't know if either of the chiefs have a plan for it. Historically, since I've been here, this is the third time we've received that $25,000, and I've left it entirely up to them. It doesn't mean I can't make that suggestion. I just don't know if they've already gotten together and earmarked it for some other need that I'm not
Sure
aware
they
of.
did.
Yeah, but I that's a great idea. Absolutely. The next group are schools, and they're kind of self-explanatory. And I'm sure that when the superintendent comes in to make his presentation, he can go into further details. The only thing I will mention is the ADA compliance modifications. So we have a large backlog in the millions of dollars that we need to keep up with. $100,000 is a drop in the bucket, but we are having conversations about how to tackle that a little more aggressively. We just haven't finalized whatever that plan is going to look like yet.
And that's going to be used across schools. That's not
Correct.
linked
That's-
to GHS.
Correct. So one other thing
I
I
would
want
hope that school is pretty compliant since we just built it.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, things change in
So
10 years.
So one thing I do want to note is that in the final version of this, it won't say GHS. We're currently revamping how that's in the capital plan so that it's one figure as opposed to each individual school, because there's no way to really allocate that money in any way that makes any sense to what reality looks like. So that'll be changing as well. Norcross Park replacement. At Norcross Park on North Street, we had a tree fall on a section of the playground. That playground was one that we had already targeted for accessibility renovations. So rather than spend the insurance money and replace in kind what we lost, we decided we're going to try to take that $65,000 that we got from the insurance company, couple it with $100,000 of capital money, and request the balance out of the community preservation fund to kind of put all three of those together and create an accessible structure for kids. So when we go through that process with Jen, she'll give you some more finite details. There are some deeper details as well on ClearGov. Sewer Department is replacing one of their F-250s with a plow. And then the Grafton Historic Society building that's down in South Grafton needs some envelope repair. It needs some repairs to the soffits and painting of the wood structure on the outside of the brick building. And we have a quote for that at $9,500, but I figured $500 for whatever else they find. So just to keep that building sealed up and watertight.
Their community house, is that being handled separately?
Yes. We funded that with ARPA money,
Okay.
and so you'll see movement on that in the springtime.
Cool.
Going back to the tasers, so you said that's gonna be like a lease, so we're gonna be paying that every year.
Yep.
So, would you consider putting that into the operating
Absolutely.
budget? Okay.
Yep. I wanna, honestly, I'm hyper focused on the capacity issue. And so, I would like it to make its way into the operating budget. I just don't know if we're
Leaving
gonna do
it,
that
but
in year one.
it goes away in 5 years.
Right.
Does that mean you're gonna, if you put it in the operating budget, does that mean 5 years from now you replace the tasers again? It's a
Probably.
constant
Yep.
5-year replacement?
Yep.
Okay.
And
Then that
that's what
makes
I would
sense.
anticipate.
Then that makes sense to
Yeah.
put it in the operating budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I parked it here.
Yep.
For now. You'll see this with me with other things especially with leases. I'll park year one in the capital plan and then move it into the operational budget. But if I can move it sooner, I would love for that just to be cruisers, tasers. They're just
Right
in
in
the
the
operating budget and the way they go.
Makes sense. So, understanding, thank you, Evan, excellent presentation, appreciate all the information, I apologize for my interruptions. You kept the flow going nicely, though, you did a good job. In terms of moving forward, so the next step in the process is you are going to release the budget, you have to do it on February 7th, so that's when it'll be on ClearGov, Finance Committee can get in there, start looking at it.
Yep.
And we can start planning our meetings after that. When would you like us to be ready to meet with you again after all of our budget, because we have to plan our meeting schedule, right? So when would you like us to be back to you to sit down and finalize a budget? When do you need us to vote the budget? Because we should take that date and then back into,
Yes.
does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
I did not calculate that day yet. It's middle of March. is
Okay.
When we need that, I can send you all the exact date that I would need you to vote that.
Okay.
Yes, that'd be a good number to have. I apologize for.
No,
not
that's
having it.
okay. That's
No,
okay.
I should have done that beforehand. The other thing, I mean, I'll be at all of your meetings, obviously. So,
All right, so what I'm thinking, Finance Committee, is the budget gets released on the 8th. We usually take a month for us to do our departmental meetings. We should probably hold a meeting, a brief meeting. We could probably do it on Zoom to figure out who's gonna cover what departments, because we have some new members this year. So we wanna figure out who's gonna cover the departmental meetings. And then we should decide on a Saturday, what our Saturday meeting is going to be. One thing I would like to do with the Finance Committee's indulgence this year is limit it to one Saturday to do all the budgets in one day, just make it a full day, have a lunch break instead of three, because getting you all to commit to 3 consecutive Saturdays, I think is an undue burden on the finance committee. So if we can focus on one Saturday, and then we can decide what departments we want to bring in. Do we really need to talk to the conservation administrator? Do we need to talk to the Board of Health? Can Evan cover those budgets for us and answer those questions? And maybe just limit our meetings to the big departments: fire, police, DPW, recreation, library, things like that. Well, obviously schools. Well, schools we usually do on a Wednesday night, because we can
Right.
do them on a Saturday too if you want. But
I think I would prefer Wednesday night.
to have them as a separate night.
Yeah.
Right.
Focus on the schools, which is fine. Angelina, Heather, does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so if Evan wants us to take a vote in mid-March, what I would suggest we do is we ask the schools to come in and present to us on March 8th? Is that a Wednesday?
Yep.
Is March 8th a Wednesday?
Yes, pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have the school committee present to us on March 8th, and then have our full Saturday, March 11th. And then the following Wednesday, we can sit down with Evan and finalize the budget, which would be the 15th. Does that work for you if we vote the budget by the 15th?
Yes.
All right,
So
go ahead, Roger.
I did have one thing about having cutting back on the 3 Saturdays, and not that I'm in favor of having 3 Saturdays, but just inviting some committees and leaving other ones out. I don't think we should do that. What I think we ought to do is put it out there for them, saying we will be meeting on this day. We've invited a number of you to come in, and anybody else that wants to
I'm fine
come in,
with that.
please let us know.
Yep, we could add
It
that.
Still gives people the ability to come in and speak their piece.
Yep, which is, I'm fine with that. But I just think, we bring in the conservation administrator, we set aside 15, 20 minutes, and, after 3 minutes, we're
They're
done.
Or we talk to somebody for 2 hours instead of an hour, and they're sitting there trying to stay awake.
Exactly. Yeah, so I obviously we want to spend time with police, we want to spend time with fire, we want to spend time with DPW, we want to spend time with library. Apparently, we're going to need to spend time with the town clerk. So I think that's the best way to do it. And if we could just do it on one Saturday, I'm willing to, 8 to 5, commit the whole day to review the budgets, and then that way you're not coming in 3 consecutive Saturdays. That's just my recommendation. You all
So
okay with that?
what are you thinking about doing a Zoom with finance committee to
To figure out the schedule, so maybe,
assign departments?
yeah, we should do a quick Zoom meeting, maybe next Wednesday. I mean, why don't we try, what's next Wednesday's date? I'm
Well,
sorry, I
we
should have,
can't do anything with
25th.
budgets till he.
well, we can figure out,
No, why don't we just do this now?
do we have the,
No,
We don't have enough people.
and plus Nick's not here, but do we
Nick
have
is
all
not
the,
here. I would just as soon do it another time.
just a quick meeting, and that, what
No,
Amber,
there's 8 of us here.
That's
I was
true.
just thinking if we're just gonna
You can also,
parcel out
you can
the
also
things.
come up with some dates and have Amber poll the committee. And
that's true. So Amber, do you have our schedule from last year on what departments we covered? Do you have that available? I should have asked you for that earlier, I apologize.
Yeah, I believe so. I should be able to look it up
Okay.
from.
All right, so for right now, Amber, we want to invite the school committee on March 8th at 7 o'clock. Make sure, hopefully this room is available for that. And then Saturday, March 11th, will be a full day, and I'll work with Amber on setting up the schedule for the departments to come in and meet with us. If you'll allow me to use my discretion on which ones I want to invite in based on the size, or you guys can offer input to me after you think about it, and then we'll invite in who you want to invite
I
in. But
think after we meet with the departments,
we'll,
it would be
we'll know
better
better.
to-
Okay, good idea.
because something may come up in the departments that we would need to discuss, so.
Here, okay, but definitely, it's a no-brainer. The police, fire, highway,
Correct.
library, recreation. Who else should we bring in automatically to review? Do you have any suggestions?
I think we covered the major
Yeah.
ones.
And then Evan will obviously, I'm gonna set aside time for Evan to walk us through the planning board, conservation, treasurer. Mary will be with us to walk us through finance. So I think we can I think that'd be the best way to,
And it just works out that most of those departments don't have any significant change anyways. They're pretty
Which is-
much
which is
just
easy.
Salary changes and
Yep.
that's it.
which is easy. But obviously, we wanna spend time talking to police and fire, because
Yep.
obviously, police is a huge
Yep.
increase this year.
Correct.
So we wanna spend
Mark,
time
are
on
we
that.
gonna have BVT on another Wednesday night?
Yeah, we usually do them after we do the public school, after we do the local school, right?
I think you generally send representatives to their meeting and then they bring it back, isn't that correct?
No,
No.
we did a Zoom meeting with them last year where the superintendent came to see us. I distinctly remember
We did
that.
a Wednesday night.
We did a Wednesday night
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you wanna just do BVT the same night as we do the schools? Do both on March 8th?
I would just as soon do our schools separately,
Okay.
because they're running a tight budget.
Well, let me ask you this question then. If we're gonna vote the final budget on the 15th, what if we were to have BVT come in on the 15th and then we talk to Evan afterwards? So have them come in at 7 and then at 7:45, we go over the
Yeah.
overall budget with Evan. So Amber, we'd like to bring in Grafton Public Schools on the 8th. I'll work with you on the schedule for Saturday, the 11th. And then we'd like to bring BVT in on the 15th. And then Evan will finalize the budget with you that night as well.
Yep.
I like to streamline it, because I think we have all these meetings, and I think some of it's a waste of,
But
I agree.
a lot of it's a waste of time considering the past and this ClearGov thing where everybody can go in and find stuff that's readily
it's a
available.
lot better.
And you don't sit here and scratch your head about what you hear.
And the numbers add up,
Another important
another
point.
important part.
How many more meetings are you gonna be having with the school department?
Oh, I don't know. Well,
Are you-
several. I mean, we're,
Are you thinking about lowering the number below 43? Because that's,
we're not there yet.
okay, because 44, the meeting that
Yes,
I listened to, 44 was level funding. 43 was bare bones. I mean, that's pretty bad. Anything after that, we're impacting the educational
Correct.
system in
Yep.
town.
Yep.
So I'm concerned about that.
Well, the 43.4 that you're carrying right now, if I remember correctly, that was in the projection you gave us back in August.
Correct.
Right.
So I agree with you 100%. I don't want to see us go below the 43.4 at a minimum.
Yep.
Because that's what they've been building their budgets on, that's what their projections have been. 43, $400,000, that's a lot of money, right?
And 40, and with 43, they've even made some cuts for.
Even to get to 43.4, they made cuts.
Yes, they made cuts, and they wanted one new position, and they didn't get that.
Okay.
So, and that's one position that I would like to consider, because I think it's an important one. For $60,000, I would think we could find
Just write a check.
60,000. You write the check.
Well,
You
so,
think we
so
should
let me ask you,
find
a question, Evan. So February 1st, Governor Healy's gonna present her first budget, and hopefully it's a very generous
Really?
budget.
Yep.
Well, she's supposed to.
Oh, well, okay.
That's usually when the governor submits the budget on February 1st. So I'm hoping that you get some Chapter 70 news like you got last year, which made your life so much easier.
Correct.
Hopefully, maybe lightning will strike twice.
Yep.
And that'll make your decisions on the budget so much easier.
Right. Yep, that's what we're hoping to, and I can't stress enough, like, this is our worst case scenario on revenue.
Yep.
It's so early.
Yep.
I'm not gonna overstate, what we could potentially get, so.
Yep.
If all those numbers come in rosier, then that levy capacity grows and the amount of money that we have for.
So the worst case scenario is $347,000. Worst case.
Yep,
That's, in some of the things you pointed out, you don't know what's gonna happen with growth. Growth will probably be higher than 700,000.
Right.
Hopefully, Chapter 70 comes in higher.
right,
Hopefully, there's a miracle and people decide they wanna get high on a regular basis and your marijuana revenue goes up.
yes, let's hope.
So there's a lot of potential.
Finance committee may take part in that.
We may need that for that Saturday
We may
meeting.
need it for that Saturday.
And also,
All
yeah.
right, I think that's, and of course, select board members, you are obviously more than welcome to attend any,
Oh, I'll be there.
I know you will be, any of the
So
meetings.
before
Go
we
ahead.
wrap up, I just
We're not wrap, we have a
questions.
couple more things to do.
Great. I know this is the high level presentation, so I'll keep my comments high level.
Okay.
In terms of trends, is it true that our reserve ratio has been ticking down slowly?
You mean our levy capacity?
Nope. Our overall reserve ratio?
You mean the stabilization fund, free
Stabilization.
cash?
Yep.
Not significantly.
Okay. If you can just check that, my recollection is we were 6 and some change, and then 6, and now we're at 5 and 0.8 or whatever.
I think we're, okay, I had it at 5.6 and we went up to 5.7.
Okay.
So, because we did, there's always a lag between town meeting, what we put in there, and then the next fiscal year.
Yep.
And those trend data, but I can graph that for you pretty quickly.
All right. My only comment was if that, in my, I don't have the numbers
Right,
on hand.
yes.
If that looks like it's trending down, I'd like to see that in next year as one of the budget priorities. I totally agree with your budget priorities for this year. I think they're spot on.
Can I digress on one thing?
Yeah.
So one of the conversations, you won't see that in the budget presentation, but if you look at what we did with free cash, and we left ourselves quite a bit of capacity there in our 1/3, what we will generally do is when we get closer to town meeting, there's a warrant article that's separate for moving money into stabilization, and we take what we can there, divvy it between that and OPEB, and then shift it over.
Got it.
So you'll see that happen as well. That there will be money going into stabilization. It just doesn't show up here in that presentation.
Got it. So that number may change a little bit.
Yes.
That's what we're saying. Okay.
Yes.
I would ask Finance Committee to. It seems like we are have some urgency to getting to a certain number in the police department. I'd ask the Finance Committee to vet that and really make sure that, you know, do we have to do this now? I completely support the increases. I guess my question would be, do we need to, you know, we've been doing that aggressively for a couple of years now. Do we need to continue on that same aggressive path? And
So take a break, slow down the growth, maybe not add the new position this year, see what it does on the budget.
I'm saying, meter it out a little bit, to try to preserve as much levy capacity. I have some concerns about commingling the override capacity with the overall levy capacity, because we kind of, I think it, I want to be careful about my words here. The way that we've sort of been tracking that historically has been against the override capacity and what we had originally planned.
Right.
So again, I'll just,
So I get what you're saying. So basically what Evan would have to do to take an eye on it is go back to 2000, when did we do the override, 18?
2020.
2020.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Mid-COVID.
COVID, that's right. So you gotta go back to 20, see what the levy limit was at that time, and then grow it, take the override money, separate it out, and then take what the growth would have been, the 2.5% plus new growth without that $3 million that we added, or 2 point, whatever that number is. See where we are, and then see what's left. I understand exactly what you're saying. That's not that hard to do. I understand why you're commingling it, because the numbers are the numbers.
Right.
But I think Matt's right. I think what we should probably do is take a look at how much of it we've spent versus where we are.
So we
That's a good point.
I do have spreadsheets on that.
Okay, perfect.
yeah, I just, in terms of financial transparency, I think that's an important one. We've made a decision that's new, that is that we need to support our police department with, you know, ratios that match, ratios that make sense for a growing town like Grafton. That's new. That wasn't discussed in the original override. We had planned on building out the fire department, and so there's an impact on that. And when we talk about things like retirement contributions and all of that, again, I want to be super clear. I totally support building out the, you know, police department to be what Grafton needs. We need good service in that area. I like the hires that have been made. I think the chief's doing a great job and all of that. But it seems like we're doing it pretty aggressively to get to a certain number, and I would question what's the need to get to a particular number in terms of service levels, and I don't know the answer to that. So I would just refer to that to Finance Committee to sort of have that discussion with the chief, and meter that out a little bit, and then just so.
I think Matt, I think you're right. I think if we look at the override numbers, Mary has the spreadsheets. If we look at that and we see how much less we've taken out of that towards the police department, which of course priorities change. You know, it's 2020 now and
Absolutely.
2023, so I can understand that. But I think Matt's right. I think we need to look at that and just keep an eye on it. We may decide at the end of the day it's worth the investment. in
We've
the
had
police
some
department.
significant tailwinds too, though.
Yep.
Right? So chapter 70, it got beefed up by over $1 million.
Yep.
So
Right.
there's been a lot of things, and that's just budgeting,
Yep.
right? That's municipal finance. It's stuff like that's gonna happen, but keeping some
Yep.
level of track of it along the way, so that we have the right story to tell.
Should we need to go for another override?
Should we need to go for another? I just think it's really important.
I agree with you.
So I
Good
don't
point,
have
Matt.
any particular concerns about this budget because I know it's so super early. But I just want to make sure that we're having those conversations along the way.
I have one, but I think you know where my one concern with this budget is.
I didn't pick up on that. So, but to be clear, we are tracking it that way.
Okay.
I took it out of the presentation because it's one of those numbers that I can make it do whatever I want it to do. And I feel that it's disingenuous to push that as transparency because I don't think it is transparency. I think that's one of my problems with it is because it's an artificial line in the sand that I could take all the police out of new growth and none of it impacted the override. It's literally the same bucket of money. So I know that I'm being truthful. I just feel like it's a disingenuous way to present
I
how much money
understand.
we have.
I-
I take Matt's point 100%, and we do have that data, and I can put that in here and we'll show it. I just want to be very clear that
The levy is the levy.
the levy is the levy.
The town grew the
I
levy.
don't want people to
Yeah.
think that there's an extra piggy bank that's floating.
No.
Because when you interviewed me and you said there was 5 million left in an override, could not figure out for the life of me what you were talking about. Because you were talking about it like it's not like it was excess capacity, but like it was a piggy bank. To
Well, then you faked it really well during that interview. You made it sound like you knew what we were talking
Well,
about.
yeah,
On the job.
exactly.
That's why we recommended you.
Exactly. No, I figured it out. But I find that to be an odd way to present that
Understood.
to the public. And I just, again, it's not because I want to be less transparent. I think that we've done a lot of things to be more transparent.
Absolutely.
Clear gov alone. Yeah.
Right. I just want to, I've been trying to shy away from things that we can, government has a way to skew things to make it look a
Yeah.
certain way.
I'm
And,
totally
and
with you.
I don't want to be doing that. So with that said, we will put those numbers out.
Just to take a look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. But just keep in mind that, Mary's a great finance director and you'll get the true numbers out of her. But I just want to, that's all. I just wanted to say my piece. on it.
I appreciate that, and I think Matt makes a very valid point.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to look at those numbers.
Absolutely.
And if we need
go
to
ahead.
change the narrative in terms of how we characterize that going forward, I think tell us
Yeah.
that just historically, that's the way that Grafton has done
Yes.
overrides.
Yep.
If we need to be thinking about it in a different way, by all means, educate us and we'll change the conversation, but, it was characterized in a certain way for
Yes.
a long period of time.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
So that's just where we're.
Right. And I we've worked together for a couple years now, and I try to. One of the things that was discussed when I was hired was the way that information was presented and the overall ease of people to see what was actually happening with their tax dollars, and I've tried to stay
You've done a great job with
true
that.
to that, and
Yep.
and I so that's why I said what I said, and I wholly agree with what you're saying, Matt. So let's find a different way to do that. In the meantime, Mary already has the numbers, and we'll get those out to you.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you. Anne Marie, is there anything you want to ask? Colleen?
Nope, I'm good.
Anybody else on the finance committee have any questions with that? Amber, were you able to find that spreadsheet?
For last year's meeting dates?
Well, no, last year's which members of the finance committee
Right.
covered which departments?
Just have her send it out.
Yeah, we don't have to look at it tonight. We'll send it
Just
out and
send
we'll
it out.
schedule, I'll reach out, but does next Wednesday work if we do a quick Zoom meeting to do that for everybody? Meet at 7:00, we'll just do it on Zoom and that way you don't all have to come out. Does that work for you, Heather, Angelina?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep, that works.
So that's what we'll do there. And then the meeting schedule, just so you all put it in your calendars. March 8th, school department, March 11th, Saturday meeting, March 15th, BVT and the town administrator's final budget recommendation. and then we'll have a whole month of February for us to go out and schedule our meetings with the various departments and have our individual discussions, and then we can bring that back to the full committee. If there's a need, if members of the finance committee feel that we should add another meeting between next Wednesday and March 8th, for any reason, let me know and we'll schedule another meeting. If there's something you want to talk about as far as process, or you don't like the direction we're going, you want to add more meetings, we can do that. Because I want to make sure we're covering, there's this particular budget that Evan's presenting tonight is pretty much a maintenance budget. From what I've seen, from what you presented, you are adding that additional police officer position.
Yep.
But everything else seems to be pretty much keeping with where you are right now. You're not adding a lot of things to it. And there's many of us who've been through this budget now this will be the third year with Evan, right? This is the third budget with you?
Third budget.
Third budget with Evan, so I think we have a pretty good relationship with Evan and we understand what he's trying to do. So I think your presentation tonight was excellent. I apologize for throwing monkey wrenches at you, but things pop up in my head and I can't help myself. There's no filter to the, you've learned that for 3 years.
I've come to learn that.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so that's that. We do have minutes that we have to
Do
approve.
we have a public comment? It's
Oh.
a public hearing.
Oh, thank you for, that's
You're-
true. Are there any public? Any comments?
Anybody?
Is there anybody online?
Nope.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
from
So
online, no
then
comment.
I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call. Dan?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Greg?
Aye.
Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Aye.
Sue? Heather?
Aye.
Angelina?
Aye.
All right, we have a set of minutes that we need to approve, several sets of minutes. I would entertain them, unless somebody has an individual comment, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes A through S as listed on the Finance Committee agenda for Wednesday, January 18th.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call. Dan?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Greg?
Aye.
Victoria?
Aye.
Skip?
Abstain.
Sue?
Aye.
Angelina?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
All right, is there anything else we need to talk about? Any other issues from anybody? Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Great presentation, Evan, I appreciate it. Mary, thank you for being here. Amber, thank you. I'll be in touch. Amber, I'll reach out to you and we'll figure out what we need to do. So I will call us adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
So will I.
There you go.
All right. You need to
Evan,
get.
am I the only one?
I have one.